Hi, this is Peter Case. You're listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From Randy Nichols, public comment on unfair and anti-competitive practices in the live ticketing industry.
And from the Wall Street Journal, the economics of Live Nation.
From Chartmetric, why some artists are rethinking touring.
And from Chris Castle for the Trichordist, massive state opposition to AI regulation, safe harbor moratorium in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Ooh.
Well, Jay, we'll talk a little bit about said Beautiful Bill Act and other things. It is episode 251. Jay and I are really glad you're here because we're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Well, Jay, after much stuff going on in my morning, it is really good to see you.
Yes, the show must go on. It was a crazy, crazy morning, and then we just spent an hour talking about avocados. There was a really interesting article this week that my friend Randy Nichols wrote, the one we just mentioned, public comment on unfair and anti-competitive practices in the live ticketing industry. And Randy, if you don't know, he's a music industry innovation strategist, tech advisor, but really a live music and ticketing advocate. Randy recently wrote, and this is a quote, "The manipulation of inventory, unchecked speculative listings, and aggressive affiliate networks have created a system where fairness is neither expected nor delivered."
Wow, those are powerful words right there. In your interview with Randy, by the way, you cover some hot issues with the live ticketing industry today, including automated bots and browser-based tools, speculative ticket listings and the problems they pose, and deceptive URLs and branding. And I'm getting depressed thinking about this.
This was such a great conversation. And there was one other area that I wasn't aware of, and that's these loans that are used to finance bulk ticket purchases by scalpers. So without further ado, let's listen into a very important conversation with Randy Nichols. Randy, thanks for joining me today. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You posted an open letter last week to the Antitrust Division of the DOJ. The headline was Public Comment on Unfair and Anti-Competitive Practices in the Live Ticketing Industry. Boy, that grabbed our attention. So based on your participation in recent DOJ Live Entertainment Market Roundtable, and that was led by Attorney General Gail Slater, you wrote that, quote, "The manipulation of inventory, unchecked speculative listings, and aggressive affiliate networks have created a system where fairness is neither expected nor delivered." Wow. Tell us about the roundtable and those comments.
Yeah, sure. So the roundtable happened on the Friday after Kid Rock and Trump were in the Oval Office announcing their, going after scalpers. And, the great thing was there was an immediate response from the DOJ to understand the issue. And they invited myself and Tom DeGeorge from the Crowbar in Tampa, Florida, who's been a very active speaker about similar issues, but on the venue side. And then people from a handful of senators' offices and a representative from the FTC. And they asked the real questions, what's going on? And, one of the things that I really appreciated was their vibe was we talk to the lobbyists all the time, but they really wanted to hear from Tom and myself to understand what these problems are, how they're impacting real people, and what we feel solutions are so that they could begin working on those steps. And the next step in that is the public comments, which opened up last week, which is where I, then wrote that in-depth letter to, really detail it out for both them and everyone in the industry and beyond to understand.
Yeah, well, let's break that down, starting with automated bots and browser-based tools. For those with no prior knowledge, Randy, what are those and how do they affect ticketing and this ecosystem?
Yeah, so when everybody goes to buy a ticket, they get mad at Ticketmaster instantly. Like, I went to Ticketmaster and, all the tickets were gone and they were up for resale in 2 minutes. Ticketmaster screwing me.
Yep.
And I'm not here to defend Ticketmaster at all. If you read my letter, I point out, feel free to break them up. Like, that's not, my concern in protecting them. But what these predators do is they've created tools that allow them to cut to the front of the line in queues, that allow them to mask their IP address so they appear to be closer to the venue. They have tools that dynamically create a new credit card number for each order. So one of the many things that most shows do is they have a ticket limit, but they have these browser tabs that you can operate like 100 browser tabs at once, controlling all of them. And as you go to buy tickets, it creates a new credit card number. It creates a new home address. It shows a different IP address so that you're not in the same location. And it allows you to spoof real people. And it's almost impossible for any of the ticketing companies to find this. And the way the law is currently written today, pretty much the ticketing company has to find the person who's using these tools. And my take when I met with Assistant Attorney General Slater was we not only need to go after the bad actors, but we need to go after the companies who are selling these tools. Many of these tools are based in the US. They're selling wares that allow you to commit fraud and crimes and nothing else. So why are we not shutting down these companies versus waiting for Ticketmaster or Access or C-Tickets to find the infiltration?
Wow, that's crazy. Tell us a little bit about speculative ticket listings. We read about that a lot. Talk about the problems they pose and really what is speculative ticket listings?
Yeah, so speculative ticketing is the act of selling a ticket that you don't currently have. And a great example of this would be if you go on any of the ticketing sites, there's tens of thousands of tickets available for the World Cup right now. The World Cup hasn't gone on sale yet. So, that just tells you what a speculative ticket is. You look at any tour that's announced on a Monday that's going on sale on Friday, and immediately thousands, if not tens of thousands of tickets are showing up on these secondary market sites. And you'll notice they're not an actual seat. They use a term in the scalping world called zone seating, which just means they kind of say like, oh, these are kind of in the second level. And they know that they can find second level on the arena seats. So they will provide you with what you need and stay within the rules of the ticketing marketplaces. And let me point out also that StubHub doesn't allow speculative seating in their terms of service, but they do allow zone seating. So if they truly didn't allow speculative ticketing, they would require a real ticket in their marketplace. And again, I'm not a defender of Ticketmaster, but on Ticketmaster's resale site, you need to have an actual ticket in order to sell a ticket. Common sense. And it goes a step further because what these actors do is they not only put the tickets up on sale, but they purposely don't buy them right away. They have incredibly sophisticated computer systems that analyze the data and pricing, and they buy the tickets when it statistically says they will be at the lowest price. And it's ultimately the equivalent of shorting stocks. If anyone's familiar with how shorting stocks work, it's exactly the same thing. And a lot of these scalpers consider themselves short sellers. They literally use those terms. And at the end of the day, these are, tickets have become unregulated equities where these large firms, they're backed by multi-billion dollar private equity firms, and they're making huge bets just like they would do on the stock market and manipulating the market so you or I can't buy a ticket.
A topic that doesn't really get talked about much that you write about is deceptive URLs and branding. Talk about that problem and what can be done about it.
Yeah, so with deceptive URLs, you have a couple of different things going on. One is you have venue names where, like in New York, if you go to jonesbeach.com and you try to buy a ticket, you will think you're buying it from jonesbeach.com, but you're really buying it through a network of websites that are based offshore so that they're not regulated by the US, who then have an affiliate relationship with a company in Connecticut called Ticket Network. Ticket Network then fulfills that ticket, and the person thinks they bought a ticket from Jones Beach. On the website, it literally has the box office number for Jones Beach if you have a problem. You believe that you're buying a ticket from them. So you also, with deceptive URLs, you sometimes have somebody who will do like Dave Matthews tour tickets, and you think you're buying your ticket for Dave Matthews, which you are, but you're not buying it from any of the legitimate sources. And again, it's going through these affiliate networks who are providing the tickets. And in some states, these deceptive URLs are illegal. But the way they get around this is they're all offshore companies. Like there's a company called Pure Tonic Marketing that's based in the Seychelles Islands. And then they have an affiliate relationship with Ticket Network, who Ticket Network is like, oh, we didn't know they were illegal. It's not in our terms of service. And nobody's going after them.
Wow. And finally, an area I wasn't even aware of, these loans that are used to finance bulk ticket purchases by scalpers. How do these loans empower well-funded scalpers to sort of outcompete everyday consumers like you and me for these tickets?
Yeah, so they can finance the larger, major scalpers, but they could also finance, the new guy getting into the game who wants to sell, 20 tickets a day or whatever. They are there to provide funding. And, the key thing is you don't have to put down money to be a ticket scalper. The whole idea is you get a cash advance, you buy the tickets. These broker networks are using these tickets as collateral. So if you're too stupid to figure out how to become a scalper, they could then distribute them throughout their network. And these ticket networks are also charging fees. Like there's tools in the scalper world called like a POS system. POS system distributes your tickets to every scalper platform. Then they have platforms for managing your money, for managing the pricing, for delivery of the tickets, for customer service. And they charge for all these fees. So they're not only loaning you the money, but they're then locking you into their ecosystem where they're going to bill you multiple times. And, they have these tremendous fees on the tickets, and they're keeping all these fees. And the reseller, the newer, more junior reseller is not even making that much money because they're locked into all these other people who are fleecing them as well. But it's, like.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about this, and also for shining a light on these issues. Where can people learn more about you, Randy, and where can they learn more about these issues, and how can they help?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of an organization called NITO, the National Independent Talent Organization. And if you follow us, we're sharing a lot of information. We're also partners in a group called the Fix the Ticks Coalition. And if you check out Fix the Ticks website, they have a lot of great information. If you want to contact me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can watch me fighting multiple scalpers on Twitter, where my handle, I can't remember. It's either @ForceMM or Randy Nichols. I forget my own Twitter name. I'm actually, oddly enough, very new to Twitter. but I've just gotten really involved with fighting these kind of scalper accounts who are trying to justify why they can do these things.
Randy, keep up the great work, man. Let's talk again soon.
Thanks. Good talking to you.
Wow. Thank you, Randy Nichols, for breaking that all down for us. It is fascinating, fascinating stuff. And so much that goes on behind the scenes that, like you were saying, I had no idea.
It's
you had
worse
no idea.
than we thought, Mike.
It's just crazy. And
So there's a really cool podcast that we mentioned in the last week or so by our friend Lars Murray. It's called Unlimited Supply. And we really like his podcast. And we're going to be talking with him on the podcast soon, but I was listening to it's a daily podcast, and I think it was like last Thursday or Friday. It really caught my eye when he started talking about this big, beautiful bill that they're pushing through Congress, and how there's some ramifications there as far as AI training. And without going too deep into it, I'll let Lars sort of break it down for you. Let's listen to Lars Murray from Unlimited Supply.
We took a look at the list of who in the House voted for this big, beautiful bill that would allow big AI to do whatever the heck they want with your copyrights and potentially your name, image, and likeness for the next 10 years. That list includes, guess who? All 4 Nashville area congressmen. That's right, Nashville artists and songwriters and label folks and publishers and managers. Your own congressman sold you out to big AI. So, in the name of patriotism, freedom, and democracy, what better time to name these 4 individuals, Music City peeps, if you voted for Scott Desjardins, Andy Ogles, John Rose, and Mark E. Green, they threw you under the bus. Paging Senator Marsha Blackburn, there's still time to do the right thing in the Senate.
Well, that is so fascinating. Again, those Nashville area representatives, there's Scott Desjardins. He's a U.S. representative for Tennessee's 4th Congressional District. He's a Republican. Andy Ogles, he's also a Republican. He's the U.S. representative for Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. There's John Rose, another Republican, U.S. representative for Tennessee's 6th Congressional District. And Mark E. Green, another Republican, U.S. representative for Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. So thank you, Lars Murray. Don't miss his daily Unlimited Supply podcast. It is very interesting and very cool. But this stuff is really, really troubling. And so we got to reach out to our representatives.
These guys are throwing us under the bus, and I appreciate Lars for pointing that out. Thank you, Lars. The next piece, the economics of Live Nation. This is from the Wall Street Journal. It was a YouTube video a friend of mine sent me, and it's not super long, but I watched that thing twice, and I was blown away because, we follow the ticketing thing and we follow Live Nation pretty closely, and some people don't let facts get in the way of a good story, and sometimes Live Nation is sort of the easy target. But there were 4 experts on this video, and we're going to play a little bit of audio from it. Ann Steele, who we've talked about before from the Wall Street Journal. She's their music industry reporter. Caitlin Heinrich, she's the Live Nation head of global corporate affairs. And then the executive director from NEVA, Stephen Parker, and a club owner from the UK, this gentleman named Jake Ferry.
Live Nation Entertainment made $23 billion in 2024, not just by owning Ticketmaster, but by having a hand in nearly every corner of the live music industry, from owning around 390 venues and having a controlling stake in festivals like Lollapalooza and Bonnaroo, to investing in ancillary businesses like Liquid Death Water and owning its own management agencies. Live Nation owns and operates several artist management companies, including Artist Nation, Rock Nation Management, and Frontline Management.
Right. In this little mini documentary, they talk about Live Nation's flywheel business model, and that's really fueled the company's rise. The Wall Street Journal examines how this business model allows it to operate in the 4 main areas of touring, and how the same strategy could be its downfall after the DOJ sued the company over monopoly concerns. So here's a little excerpt. This is the economics of Live Nation from the Wall Street Journal. Let's listen in.
The average cost of going to a concert has nearly doubled in the last 10 years. And yet, for some venues, live music has been a notoriously hard business to make money from.
The majority of people are not making anything else apart from a living, and it's just being squeezed.
But Live Nation seems to have it figured out. It made $23 billion in 2024, not just by owning Ticketmaster, but by having a hand in nearly every corner of the industry.
This is the machine behind live events.
Live Nation's so-called flywheel business model has fueled the company's rise by treating each of its businesses like a cog in the machine that helps propel the whole business forward. But some, including the US government, are questioning whether it's monopolizing the industry.
There is more competition in the industry today than there ever has been.
If you don't work with them, there is great fear that they will destroy you.
This is the economics of Live Nation.
It used to be that you would go on tour to promote album sales. That entirely flipped. Now you put out music so that you can go on tour and sell tickets and merchandise.
Behind the scenes of any tour are four main businesses: the artist, the promoter, the venue, and the ticketing platform. Back in 2010, Live Nation merged with Ticketmaster, creating Live Nation Entertainment.
There was immediate backlash. This was the world's largest concert promoter teaming up with the largest purveyor of tickets.
Over the last 15 years, Live Nation has employed a flywheel business model to gain a stake in every major business in the live events industry.
The flywheel is something that executives at Live Nation have talked about publicly on investor calls for years. This has been something that investors have very much cheered on, and we've seen their stock go up and up over the years. But now it's something that the DOJ has identified specifically as problematic.
As part of its antitrust lawsuit, the U.S. Department of Justice included this graphic to illustrate how Live Nation can reinvest profits from its high-margin businesses into its lower-margin businesses.
They are vertically integrated, and that allows them to take losses on their promotions and their shows because they have ticketing revenue that comes in. They have advertising deals that not a single independent venue or festival could ever even come close to touching.
Live Nation can get a lot of bang for its buck on sponsorships and advertising because it doesn't cost much to attach a brand's name to an event.
That could be something like, Verizon sets up special little mini stages around a festival, and anyone that has that Verizon ticker on their phone can pop up there and get an epic view for a few minutes.
Ticketmaster takes more resources to operate, but also has impressive margins. Putting on concerts is even more expensive, especially for independent venues like this one.
The margins are so small. We just hope and pray that 90 people come in that like a drink and they spend £10 each, and then we're in profit, because the break-even point for currently for our shows is around £550, £600.
Bermondsey Social Club does work with Live Nation to book some up-and-coming artists, but Live Nation makes a lot of its money from stadium tours. It owns, operates, has a stake in, or exclusively books shows for around 390 venues across more than 50 countries. From amphitheaters to the House of Blues. It also has a controlling stake in festivals like Lollapalooza and Bonnaroo.
When we are advocating as the independent live sector, it's to make sure that we can keep our doors open. Live Nation is lobbying so that they can make sure that their profit margin is large.
Live Nation said it's not lobbying to protect margins, and it supports many reforms that could actually reduce profits. In 2019, fans spent an average of $29 on extras at Live Nation amphitheaters. By 2024, it was more than $40.
Because we are only making money on the bar, youth culture not drinking as much, that has a knock-on effect to the amount that we're taking.
Part of Live Nation's strategy has been to invest in ancillary businesses, like Liquid Death, CVT Soft Serve, and Everything Legendary.
If you go to the Securities and Exchange Commission website and you look up Live Nation, there's an 11-page document that lists more than 425 subsidiary companies or organizations of Live Nation.
These are just more spokes of the flywheel. It's getting its tentacles into every piece of the live events business. In the case of Liquid Death, this is a company that they not only invested in, but then were able to make the exclusive water provider at many of its venues.
Live Nation is able to increase its profit margins on concerts by also selling things like VIP ticket packages, parking, phone chargers, and more.
You think about when you would go to shows and you get a kind of warm beer and be standing on a sticky floor. There's a long way to go to kind of give an elevated experience for the fans that want it.
Now, the venues are nothing without artists on the stage and promoters to bring in the fans.
Managers are often the most important part of an artist's day-to-day business.
Live Nation has its own management agency called Artist Nation. It's also invested in other agencies like Jay-Z's Rock Nation and even an influencer talent agency. Live Nation's promotion business has grown by acquiring or investing in independent promoters around the world.
The amount of hours it takes to promote it, get the artwork done, changes, speak to the artist, and then all that for a return isn't really there. So you need your Live Nations to be able to do it.
What we have done is really built the best touring team in the industry. You know, none of this would happen without all the folks that grind it out behind the scenes and on tour. That's not an easy lifestyle by any means.
According to Pollstar, Live Nation is by far the largest global concert promoter today, selling $7.5 billion worth of tickets in 2024, which includes its acquisition of Ocesa, a Mexican concert promoter. Live Nation estimates its global ticket revenue is higher, at more than $10 billion.
Because Live Nation has this Ticketmaster unit, which is essentially a cash cow, they are able to offer a lot of money to artists to buy out their entire tour. What they can do is route a tour through buildings that Ticketmaster has exclusive ticketing contracts with.
And that's where Live Nation's ticketing business comes in.
Ticketmaster was the pioneer and is still the dominant player in this thing called exclusive ticketing contracts. This is when they go to venues of all sizes, clubs, theaters, arenas, amphitheaters, and they become the exclusive ticketing provider for that venue. The wink, wink, nod, nod is that if you choose Ticketmaster as your ticketing provider, you are more likely to have Live Nation shows coming through the door.
Live Nation said artists and their team decide where to play based on what's best for their fans and their shows. Ticketing revenue for Live Nation has more than doubled since the merger in 2010. At the same time, the average ticket prices for a North American tour have also nearly doubled.
Resale is the number one thing that impacts ticket prices, and scalpers are not going to stop coming after that unless there are some real rules and regulations getting in their way.
Ticketmaster has its own resale platform as well, which competes with companies like StubHub and SeatGeek. Live Nation says it's proud to do resale differently because it gives artists the option to use Ticketmaster's face value exchange to cap resale prices.
We also as a society kind of crucify artists for their front row prices when, you know, you could compare that to courtside at a basketball game in the same building, and that sports ticket is 5, if not 10x what the concert ticket is.
StubHub told the Journal it's always been clear that Ticketmaster's priority isn't fans, it's profits. While they tout their face value exchanges, their control of 80% of all ticketing, nearly 1/3 of the resale market, and billions in resale profits tell a different story. And SeatGeek said resale operates best when fans aren't locked into a single platform.
It is not a simple task to track $1 of spending on a concert ticket.
But Anne did just that.
It really shows Live Nation's versatility in creating deals that not only work for the artist, but really benefit Live Nation and squeeze the maximum benefit from any corner of the industry.
This is how Live Nation breaks down the cost of a hypothetical concert ticket. Of course, they own the ticket company, but they might also own the promoter, the venue, and could even manage the artist.
I think it's important to say that every dollar that an artist gets from us or from Live Nation, they absolutely deserve. But there is a really, really important thing to remember, which is if those artists ultimately choose Live Nation all the time and don't choose us, there's not going to be a place for artists to go other than an arena or a Live Nation venue or a corporate venue that's owned by a multinational conglomerate, because we won't be here.
I mean, if someone comes along to me in 5 years' time and I've had enough of it after 15 years and goes, here's a big bag of carrots, do you want it? Then there might be a different scenario, but for now I'm always going to be independent.
The flywheel business model helped fuel Live Nation's rise to become the most powerful company in live entertainment. Now, with the DOJ lawsuit underway, could it become its downfall?
Everything that they claim to have an issue with, there's not really anything in that we're precious about protecting. There's a lot of stuff they claim we do that we don't. But ultimately, we're out there competing every day for venue deals, for artist deals. And so no, I would say we kind of keep doing what we're doing.
Oh, that was really, really interesting. There was a video interview you did with our friend Chris Castle, also over for his Artist Rights Institute last week. And the headline was An Artist's Guide to Record Releases Part 3, Jay Gilbert on Marketing Plans and Scheduling.
Yeah, it's always a good day when you can talk with a super smart friend. And Chris Castle is the guy that I call when I want to understand what's really going on behind the music business. He runs one of our favorite websites, Music Technology Policy, among other things. I was thrilled that he invited me on his podcast, the Artist Rights Institute, and that was on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. You can check it out there. And we talked about release planning. So if you're into that sort of thing, visit artistrightsinstitute.org.
A little bit of BandLab news. In the news last week was an announcement that 3 BandLab artists were recently featured in Billboard's 21 Under 21. That's David, the artist, but that's actually spells it with D4VD. There's La Tyler and 310 Baby. So very interesting that those folks are kind of creeping up. And should we mention that you have, well, we've been big fans of BandLab for a long time, but I think you gave a theory sometime back that perhaps it wouldn't be that long when we're going to have a BandLab artist break into the Billboard, let's say top 10, and it's probably going to happen.
I predicted they were going to have a number 1, and I still think they will. And they're doing really well over there. BandLab is now used by over 100 million creators worldwide. I spoke to our friend Caldecott Music Group founder and CEO, Meng Kuok, about how BandLab played a role in these artists' development. And he was kind enough to hop on a call with me from Tokyo. Let's listen into my conversation with Meng Kuok. Meng, good to see you again. How are you, sir?
Great to see you again, Jay.
Big week. Last week we heard that 3 BandLab artists were featured in Billboard's 21 Under 21, David, La Tyler, and 310 Baby. How did BandLab play a role in their development?
Look, I would definitely say they are, artists in their own right. We very much are the tool to support them in their process. I think the amazing thing is that anyone with just a mobile phone, a pair of headphones, and a dream can now make it to whether it's the Billboard charts or the most prestigious lists, like the 21 Under 21. We've been there to help them get going in their music creation or to help amplify the work that they've done. But really, I would say the biggest role that we took is to help them bring their talent out to the world and to help them record as a tool. Right.
Yeah. Tell us about your recent collaboration with David's label, Darkroom Interscope, for the album Withered at the White Room in New York City.
Yeah, we threw a 3-day pop-up for the launch of Withered. It was firstly, an incredible artist. David is unbelievably talented, but really to be able to support him in his debut album, we had a 3-day pop-up in the middle of Union Square. The first day he came in and did a fan meet and greet, intimate performance with fans, landed a backflip as he's now able to do with unbelievable skill, which is just, again, crazy. But on the second day, he also did a BandLab masterclass. So he actually showed people a lot of the early recordings and early sessions and demos of, for example, Romantic Homicide, or and some of his biggest songs that obviously have generated billions of plays around the world.
Yeah, we've been following BandLab closely, and we've watched it now grow over 100 million creators worldwide. So for those with no prior knowledge, what can songwriters and musicians, creators, what can they do with BandLab?
Well, look, it can be everything from your very first drum kit to getting your top line ideas down if you're working with someone in the studio. You could be, again, signed to a major label like some of these artists that I mentioned on the list. Or you could be someone who's making beats on your own and actually recording everything by yourself, right? And full stack from that experience. So, everything today that you need to record your first idea all the way to releasing an album that hits the charts, that's what you can do with just, again, a mobile phone, a pair of headphones, BandLab, and a dream.
Meng, where can people learn more about you and what you're up to and BandLab specifically?
So bandlab.com or bandlabtechnologies.com. We also have other parts of the group. So Airbit, Reverb Nation, as well as Cakewalk. I'm sure you're familiar with that as a very traditional DAW, more desktop first, if BandLab is mobile first. And that's one of the best ways to stay tuned. But obviously today we're very lucky that we have places like yourself who've made great predictions about the future of BandLab artists, as well as our friends at Billboard and across the industry who've been incredibly supportive of the next generation of artists.
Continued success. Thanks, Meng.
Thank you so much, Jay.
You know, for sure, BandLab is a beast and continues to innovate. Thank you, Meng. Always interesting to hear from what is going on in his world. And what I really find interesting is kind of his investments, not only in sort of the recorded music side, but also just the musical instrument side. And man, they got a lot going on over there. Really, really interesting.
Sure does.
So a few quick things before we jump into our stories this week. This is from The Verge, Miyasato over there. TikTok users can now save songs directly to SoundCloud. TikTok users will now be able to save tracks they discover straight to their SoundCloud app. On Wednesday, the two companies announced they're partnering to expand an existing TikTok feature that was previously available to users of music streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify.
Yeah, the Add to Music app button that appears when a TikTok user clicks on an audio track added to a video. Saved songs are automatically added to a TikTok playlist on the user's default music streaming service. Pretty cool.
Indeed. Another interesting piece by Mandy DeLugdug over at Music Business Worldwide. Udio's mobile app launches on iOS, priced at up to $30 per month. Of course, Udio, an AI company startup facing ongoing litigation from major record labels alongside its competitor Suno, has released its first mobile app on Apple's iOS platform. The app that was launched Tuesday, May 20th, brings Udio's text-to-music generation features to mobile devices, allowing users to create songs through text prompts without traditional music training.
Right. And you and I have tried these apps. It's incredible, the quality of music that you can generate with a text prompt. But of course, it's going to be high quality. It's training off all of the greatest music that's ever been recorded. The company, backed by venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, among others, said the app makes studio quality songs with AI. In June last year, Sony Music, Universal Music, and Warner Music sued Udio and its peer Suno in U.S., alleging copyright infringement in the AI training process.
Right. The Recording Industry Association of America, that's of course the RIAA, claims both companies use copyrighted recordings without permission to train their AI systems.
Yeah, now they have this mobile app, and we'll see how this goes. It's growing in leaps and bounds, and it's horrifying in so many ways. Before we jump into the stories, I was telling you before we hit record, I was listening to this cool new podcast, and I love the name of it. It's called Vinyl Tap, and it's with a gentleman named Michael Parisi, and he interviewed Carl Richter, who's the founder of Disco. And it's super great. You should check it out. Disco is one of those platforms that most people I know in the industry use it and are aware of it. But if you're not, it's this great platform where you can put your focus tracks, you can put your music, and make it available for music supervisors so they can place it in films, TV shows, games, that sort of thing. It's called Disco. Anyway, their founder, Carl Richter, super interesting cat. He was on the Vinyl Tap podcast with Michael Parisi, and I thought that was really good.
Very cool. Another interesting piece from Music EXP. Roblox partners with Shopify. New opportunities for physical music and merch sales? ? Roblox players can now buy physical products directly within Roblox experiences as part of its partnership with Shopify. According to Roblox, eligible creators, including brands, can bundle physical purchases with digital items via Roblox's new commerce APIs, with Shopify as our first integration partner.
Right. This announcement follows earlier beta tests with Walmart, which sold private label brands, and Fandango, the movie ticket company. This partnership is part of Roblox's mission to bridge the gap between virtual and real world shopping, AKA the metaverse, right? Everything is done via Shopify's APIs, making it similar to the e-commerce platform's existing partnerships with YouTube and Spotify. I thought that was really interesting, and don't sleep on Roblox. They are innovating and they're doing some really cool things.
They certainly are. Jay, before we jump into our main big stories, what do you say we thank our sponsors? Very lucky to have them.
Yeah, we are sponsored by the Mechanical Licensing Collective. The MLC is a nonprofit organization is making a big difference for songwriters and music publishers and other rights holders by transforming how they receive mechanical streaming royalties from services like Spotify and Apple Music in the United States. Every month, the MLC collects the streaming data and royalties from those platforms, and it matches the money to the creator who's earned it, and then it pays them or their publishers and admin partners the royalties that they're due. To date, the MLC has already distributed over $2.5 billion in total royalties and has nearly 50,000 members worldwide. So if you're a songwriter, a composer, a lyricist, or with music streaming, or a publisher or admin, you need to become a member of the MLC to ensure you're not leaving any money on the table. Best of all, membership is completely free, and the MLC pays out 100% of the royalties it receives. So visit themlc.com to learn more.
Indeed, and a very special thank you to Billboard Pro. Want to know what everyone in the music business is talking about? Get in the know with Billboard Pro. Billboard is offering your morning coffee readers a special 50% discount off the price of your subscription. Click on the link in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter to do just that.
Yes, sir. And we're also sponsored by our friends over at Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It's edited daily by our friend Bruce Houghton with help from Alana Bonilla. Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Indeed, Bands in Town. Over 90 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It is the #1 artist service platform connecting over 650,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms. We love Bands in Town.
Yes, we do.
And every week, I get to hang out with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jay Gilbert, music industry consultant. He's a curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups, and a man that can mix a mean salad. Damn it.
Yes, I can. And I get to do the show every week with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, Universal Music Group, knows more about avocados than anybody I've ever met. And Mike, I just finished the Pee Wee Herman documentary, which was fantastic, by the way, but now I need to get into that. What's that one you were telling me about on funk?
Indeed, it is a fantastic documentary. It is on PBS. It's called A History of Funk Music and Black Liberation of the 1970s. It is so worth everybody's time to check it out. I just had an ear-to-ear grin as I watched it. It's really
I will
fantastic.
watch it a little later on today, now that I'm through that Pee Wee documentary.
And I'm going to start the Pee Wee Herman documentary after I finish.
There we go.
This
We'll talk about it next week. Okay.
Exactly. All right, let's jump into our big stories. This is from Sonia Chen over at Chartmetric. Why some artists are rethinking touring. With the rising travel and accommodation costs, historically low ticket sales, and increasingly restrictive visa regulations in countries like the US and the UK, artists across the globe are facing mounting barriers touring their music. As the past few years have shown, it's not just emerging artists opting out either. It's mid-level and even superstar performers are also seeing a noticeable decline in their tour schedules.
Right. And an analysis of the top 1,000 artists from each career stage in 2022 and 2024, defining touring artists as those who performed at least 10 shows in 1 year's time, it shows a steep decline. Between those 2 years, the share of mid-level touring artists decreased from around 19% to 12%. Among superstars, touring numbers went down at an even higher rate, from 44% to 36%.
Wow. Well, these numbers indicate that star power alone no longer guarantees a successful tour. A number of famous artists canceled their tours last year due to low ticket sales, including Jennifer Lopez, the Black Keys, and Lauryn Hill and the Fugees. Big festivals are feeling the pinch as well, as many fans who may have once had the spare funds to indulge in live music are no longer in the same position to afford tickets. Even Coachella, which once regularly sold out within hours, took almost a month to sell out in 2024. In 2025, more than half of the festival's GA attendees utilized payment plans to secure their tickets. Wow.
That's right. We talked about that last week. Not every artist can make off with over $2 billion in sales like Taylor Swift did with her Eras tour. Between 2023 and 2024, Taylor Swift performed 149 shows with an average ticket price of about $204 per seat. The highest recorded ticket price was for the closing night of the entire Eras tour at her December 8th show in Vancouver, marked at over $14,000.
Wow. Well, if you're not Taylor Swift, organizing a tour in 2025, a year in which the U.S. is at a 60% chance of recession, poses a critical question for artists of all levels of fame. Financially, is it worth it to tour? Potentially not, but for those who are still making the effort to tour, the draw may consist of more than a paycheck.
Right. And so they talk about where the industry goes next. As industry analyst Bob Blessetz put it in his blog post, and you and I covered this, old school, new school. Old school, the tour was an advertisement for the album. New school, the album is an advertisement for the tour.
Right. So Bob's observation indicates that ever since the advent of streaming, which gives easy access to the album, the function of touring has changed and become relatively decentralized from the listener's experience. However, the decentralization of touring does not stem from a desire of fans to see less live music, nor a desire of artists to tour less, but rather as the result of systemic issues that leave both groups in the lurch.
Governments can help protect the live music industry by taking action to support the touring infrastructure. This includes funding to help more artists and feasibly tour and make attending shows more attractive and accessible for fans, as well as protecting local music venues from the threat of closure.
Right. In service of the latter, the UK government has recently taken a proactive step with the UK Live Trust, which reallocates money from stadium and arena concerts to smaller venues by donating £1 per ticket sold at larger venues. You can read the full story in Chartmetric's How Music Charts link that's in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter this week.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, allocating money from stadium and arena concerts and, donating that money to more of these smaller venues. We'll be watching that really closely. The last story today is from our friend Chris Castle, and this is for the Trichordist. And the headline was Massive State Opposition to A.I. Regulation Safe Harbor Moratorium in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And yes, we've been talking about this a lot. It's a hot item. As of last week, the loathsome AI Safe Harbor is still in the One Big Beautiful Act, as far as we can tell, according to Chris. Watch this space, at House Rules for when manager's amendment is released. You'll be looking for section 43201 around page 292. I'm going to jot that down. As far as we can tell, the safe harbor is still in there, which is not surprising as it comes from David Sachs, the Silicon Valley viceroy and White House crypto czar. David Sachs.
Right. But the safe harbor, that's a 10-year moratorium on state and local regulation of artificial intelligence. I'm going to say that one more time. The safe harbor is a 10-year moratorium on state and local regulation of artificial intelligence, or AI, has ignited significant opposition from a broad coalition of state officials, lawmakers, and organizations. As you would expect, opponents argue that this measure would undermine existing protections and hinder the ability of states to address AI-related harms.
That is exactly right, and that's what we were just talking about, and that's what Lars Murray was talking about in Nashville with those Republican representatives, who are voting for this, despite the fact that it was snuck in the middle of the night. Opposition is increasing all the time, but we cannot relent for a moment as Silicon Valley is at it again and wants to hang an AI safe harbor in the lobbyist hunting lodge right next to the DMCA, Section 230, and Title I of the Music Modernization Act.
Right. So let's talk about state-level opposition. A bipartisan group of 40 state attorneys general have voiced strong opposition through the NAAG to the AI regulation moratorium. In a letter to Congress, they emphasize that the moratorium would disrupt hundreds of measures being both considered by state legislatures and those that have already passed in states led by Republicans and Democrats. They argue that in the absence of comprehensive federal AI legislation, states have been at the forefront of protecting consumers.
Right. And Chris goes on to say that there's organizational opposition beyond state officials, a coalition of 141 organizations, including unions, advocacy groups, nonprofits, academic institutions. They've expressed alarm over the proposed safe harbor moratorium. In a letter to congressional leaders, they warn that the provision could lead to unfettered abuse of AI technologies, undermining critical safeguards such as civil rights protections, privacy standards, and accountability for harmful AI applications.
Yeah, so notable organizations opposing the moratorium include the Alphabet Workers Union, Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, Mozilla, American Federation of Teachers, and the Center for Democracy and Technology. We don't ask you to pick up the phone and call your Congress representatives very often, but this is one of those times. If you're not sure who your representatives are, you can go to the House of Representatives website to get that exact information. But boy, oh boy, is it time to really raise a stink about this.
Yeah, this is super important. Yep. And you can also go to the 5 Calls webpage. That's the number 5, CALLS, the 5 Calls webpage, opposing the safe harbor moratorium, which is in his article in your morning coffee. They have developed some collateral and talking points for you to draw on, if you like. This is a big damn deal, so let's get it done. We've all done it before. Let's do it again. Thank you, Chris Castle.
Yes, absolutely, for making us all aware about it and the importance of that. So it is time to wrap up the show. Jay and I certainly appreciate you listening. If you enjoy the show, please do tell one friend. Jay and I, of course, would certainly appreciate that. Big thanks to the MLC, Billboard Pro, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We couldn't do without them. Of course, the music underneath our sponsors part is the music by the Licorice Quartet. So hopefully you enjoy that. And one of our favorite bands, actually. And of course, they have members from Jellyfish, another band that we still love, although long broken up. But on that note, on behalf of Jay Gilbert, my good friend, I'm Mike Etchart. We say thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.